Back to the MarCommEd Lightning Talk, the week ahead. This is episode 4. Can't believe we're flying through the episodes already. I'm pleased to be joined again today. So my name is Zack Grimes, and I'm joined by Ryan Green, co-founder of MarCommEd. And we're also joined by Susie Murtagh from Learn Academies Trust, who are based in Leicestershire. How are you, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Zach. Had a good weekend. I was out in the lakes over the weekend enjoying a bit of walking, so I'm slightly sunburnt from those of us that are slightly follically challenged and out in the sun too long. But otherwise than that, good. Final throes of this term. I'm sure it's everyone's kind of getting super busy.
Yeah, I think everyone's on the wind down now. No, it sounds like you've had a nice weekend. You've stayed away from the Glastonbury antics and the football then.
Yeah. I wasn't, I think we were all slightly kind of concerned at yesterday's kind of England's performance, but we got there in the end, and that's the main thing. Yeah. And thanks for coming and joining, Susie. I really appreciate you coming on today.
That's okay. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you from me as well. Just to kick us off then, Susie, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your role, and the trust that you work for?
Yep, sure. So I'm Susie Murtagh. I work for Learn Academies Trust, which, as Zach said, is based in Leicestershire. I've worked for the trust for about 6.5 years now, but the role that I do now is comms and marketing manager for the trust, and that position has only been in place since October last year. Previously helped to support a couple of schools within the trust directly with their comms and marketing. And we also were previously a teaching school, obviously lost that designation a few years ago, but have continued to offer that kind of training arm of the organisation. So I've been doing the marketing and comms for that for the last 5 years or so. We deliver MPQs, teacher training. We've worked with the Church of England and the TDT, and we're an associate college of the National Institute of Teaching as well. But as I say, we've expanded into this role now for the whole trust. So the trust itself is from the very tip of North Leicestershire down to the other half of South Leicestershire, but it's going through a lot of change at the moment. So in the last 6 months, 8 schools have joined us. We're all primary schools. And so we're up to 19 schools now. So we've nearly doubled in the last 6 months. So it's been a huge change. Lots of different things, lots of need for comms and marketing, lots to do. We've also got a new CEO. Our founding CEO retired at Easter. So that was obviously a big change, big loss. She'd been there since the beginning, the founder. But we've been joined by a new CEO now who has got a background both in education, but also out of education as well. So that's been big developments just in a short space of time. So that's been really interesting. And we're quite a small team, an essential team. But since I've taken on this role, I have one colleague who works for me at the moment, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to secure the finances for us to take on 2 new colleagues as well. So I now have a team of 3 comms and marketing associates that work for me, and 2 of which that have just started in the last week. So again, lots of change coming up and good things happening, hopefully.
Well, you're definitely doing it at the right time. Well, I suppose in the right time. At least you've got the summer to kind of settle people in if they are working over the summer. But if they're not, it sounds like you've definitely got your plate full, Susie.
Yeah, I agree with that. As you were talking now, I'm thinking, well, you mentioned about the growth of the trust with schools, a new CEO, and then a new team members as well. So yeah, look, certainly things are moving in free for you there. It kind of makes my next question on the first question of today a little bit underwhelming, really, because the last few months really seem like they've been busy. But if we could kind of just take a bit more of a narrow focus, what does this week ahead look like for you?
Well, it's a really busy week, actually, because in Leicestershire, we're quite unusual in that we actually break up next week. So I finish on Tuesday next week. The schools all break up on Tuesday or Wednesday next week. And I'm actually only term time only. Historically, that's what I've always done. And my colleagues that work with me are the same. So this is a really, really busy week for us, wrapping up everything that we can before our nice break. So one of the big focuses is getting some comms out to stakeholders, parents, staff, That's going to be a great opportunity for our new CEO to really reach out to people this week. So a trust newsletter will be going out. Obviously, I'm onboarding my new colleagues, so that's taking up quite a lot of time this week. We're also holding a conference in the first week back for staff in the inset days, and we've done this a few different ways over the last few years. But the decision this year was to go to a fully online conference again, which is what we did in COVID time. So on the third inset day, we have 3 inset days at the start of term, we're having a fully online conference. So I've got a bit of work to do around last bits of literature for that, slides for holding slides, templates for the presenters that are going to be presenting that day. So that's just coming together now. I've got a few press releases to do. We've had a big charity event last weekend for our charity of the year, which has gone really well for a local hospice. So I've got a few bits to wrap up for that. We've had 2 SIAMS reports in last week and an Ofsted report today. So they're going to go out to press hopefully this week, and a Bishop's report as well, because we do work with the local diocese quite closely as well. And also we just need to get our training part of the organisation in a good place so that we can hit the ground running in September. So that's quite a lot of admin, calendars, diaries, website updates, just getting everything ready for people to book on. We do a lot of networking events within sort of the subjects across the trust. So getting that all ready for people to join the right networks as soon as they come back. We come back at the end of August, so a little bit before everybody else. So lots to do. And then on the wider scope, we're also looking at possibly looking at the brand of the trust, considering a rebrand. So I'd be really interested from anybody who's got any experience of doing that from a trust perspective, going out to tender, probably looking at some agencies coming in and supporting us with that. And also as part of that work, we're looking at redesigning our websites. We've obviously got a bit of a mix of schools that have all come in. Some of them are on the same platform, some of them are the same provider, some of them aren't. I've got a meeting with them later this afternoon, actually, our website provider. So we're really keen, if anybody else has got any experience in that part of the organisation, I'd really love to hear from anybody that's done any work with their websites and aligned them, because ours are, as you can imagine, quite varied at the moment. So last week of term, but a really busy one.
Yeah, God, absolutely crazy. And do you, I mean, you obviously knew this was coming, like you said, you're regularly term time only. So how far ahead do you normally tend to plan for these kind of big gaps, Christmas, summer, Easter, the more extended? I mean, obviously summer is the longest, but the extended kind of breaks, how far ahead are you planning?
Well, probably back from the start of the year, to be honest with you. I mean, it's quite strange, and I still find it strange after 6-7 years working in education that not only are you off, but everybody else is off as well. And obviously I've worked in the private sector for quite a long time, and I have 2-week holiday, but everything still goes on while you're not there, doesn't it? And then in education, you come back and everyone else has forgotten what they're doing and can't remember what they did before the summer holidays. So it still seems quite strange to me when we have these big breaks. But we started planning for the conference September last year, so we knew that obviously we'd have that time. Well, I'd be off those few weeks before the conference, so certainly start looking at that. Already started planning ahead for social media calendars for next year, looking at all the marketing campaigns for the new admissions, but it's been tricky to get much planned in without having the new colleagues that have only just started. So I think in this time next year we'll be in a much better position for planning ahead.
Great.
Yeah. I mean, I found that really useful because it's the stuff that I'm taking away from what you're saying, because I've got a member of my team that's actually going term time, and we're a team that operates full year round, so we're going to have to be more agile and accommodating for those periods where we're going to have less people in the team. So yeah, I think I'll be following up with you on how we can take some of your best practices on that. But no, it's really good, and I think one of the things that listening to you there is for this week is you've got a real focus on like the stuff like that needs to be done now, like the press releases, but then also being very mindful of what's coming, like the conference at the end of August into September. So yeah, credit to you. Just in terms of, you mentioned there about campaigns, what challenges are you currently facing amongst your campaigns and those plans that you put in place?
I think some of the biggest challenges are the differences between the schools that we've got in the trust. So we've got tiny village church schools, some of which are very well subscribed, some of which are not so much. 4 or 5, 6 people applying each year. And then we've got an inner city school, 2 form, 3 form entry with mixed demographics there, lots of English as an additional language. And so it's quite difficult to tailor the actual strategy to the needs of the people that are going to be applying to those schools. We've got a few village schools where there's not many houses in the village and people don't tend to move, and it's an aging population. So it's been quite hard to reach external places that might not have considered that school before. And then I think with the new schools that have joined us, one of the other challenges that we found recently is that our previous schools, our founding schools, didn't have preschools, and that's been quite a new concept, because obviously their admissions are all year round rather than just in that autumn winter term. So we've had to kind of review how we approach that, really just to kind of see what the differences are. Mm-hmm. And then obviously the other challenge is getting the new people that I've just taken on sort of really ingratiated in the schools that we're supporting. So what we've decided to do is to have the colleagues that are going to be working for me have their own particular schools. I've listened to a few people talk about how they have maybe a champion in each school that's responsible for doing comms, and be that an assistant head teacher or a teacher or an LSA. But we've taken a slightly different approach, and with the colleagues that are now working for me, they're going to have a small number of schools themselves, but be real comms specialists. So they're going to really have to get under the skin of what makes those schools tick, find out what the demographic of those parents are, find out what their USP is, and then find out how what the best processes are for getting information from the schools, finding out what's happening there, finding out what can go on social media, looking to see what their comms are. So that's going to be a real challenge to find out the different quirks of all the different schools, really, I think.
So Susie, are you, just to kind of elaborate on that, are you coming up with kind of the strategy and plan, and like you said, the kind of focus for the content, be it on social or web, and then these, the other members of your comms teams are really almost content curators? They're kind of like, they've got this framework, they need to fill in all the boxes, and really they're just kind of nurturing that with their relationships with the schools. Is that how it's going to work? Or
yeah, quite a lot like that. Fortunately, one of the colleagues in my team has actually been doing the same role with the schools that we already had in place. So she's got sort of 8 or 9 schools, I think, at the moment under her remit. So fortunately, she's been a brilliant advocate for the way that this strategy will hopefully pan out, because she has done exactly that. She's curated content, she has made links with local communities, she's set up trips and connections to outside partners. So not only engaging the community and the parent stakeholders, but also creating that content that can go on social media, that can tell the story of the school. And because that has worked really well, I'm hoping that we're going to be able to replicate the kind of role that she's been doing, and people have seen the success from that. So it was quite not an easy sell, but it wasn't too difficult to position that to head teachers and explain the benefits of that.
Yeah. Okay. Can I just ask, in terms, because operationally that's quite challenging to manage with people in the schools. Speaking from my own experience, are there any tools or systems you have in place to make that efficient and scalable?
Well, we use Teams all the time, Microsoft Teams, and what we find works quite well is geographically, it's not that easy to travel to places that easily. Some of the schools that some of the staff we're working with are local, so they're making arrangements to spend time in those schools, maybe on a half-day basis. But what works quite well is having sort of channels within Teams that staff can post images in, content that can be shared across social media, across the websites. And obviously there has to be then processes in place for managing the consents, because it's really easy to do social media in a school that you sit at, and every child in there, and which ones can't be photographed and things like that. But there's got to be some quite tight processes in place for making sure that works well. So we're just kind of exploring that at the moment to see what's currently working well for the schools that already have colleagues in place, and then what we can sort of replicate across the other schools. So that seems to work quite well for us at the moment. I think building those connections with the office teams as well really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I totally agree there. I think that networking across your trust is key in building those relationships, getting out and meeting people, but ultimately building that relationship. But again, I think I might be following up with you regarding the Teams channel, because that's something we don't do, but I'd really like the sound of that. I'm sure other people are probably doing the same. Just finally then, what emerging trends in the sector are influencing the way you're operating and developing your campaigns for the year ahead?
Well, I definitely think AI is making a difference. Videos definitely as well. But I think almost marketing itself as an emerging trend is showing itself to be quite a strong factor at the moment, because, I mean, like I say, this role that I do didn't exist 12 months ago. And it's just great to see marketing and communications being taken seriously, really. And, having colleagues that are actually managing that, colleagues that are professionally trained in marketing and comms, and having budgets to manage that are specifically for marketing and comms. I can certainly see, locally around the schools here, that they've started appointing people that are doing this marketing and comms role. Their social media, websites, online presence is certainly ramping up. I'm not saying that we were the trailblazers and they're all following, but I can see there's a difference. And this time last year, marketing and comms was just a line in the trust strategy, really, whereas now I'm writing a strategy of its own. It's got its own focus and it's taking its own priority. So just marketing itself being a trend, I think, is a really new factor in the education sector. Yeah,
I mean, it's really interesting, isn't it? And I think certainly I was reading this morning, and kind of Leora Cruddas from CST was kind of talking about the challenge of parental complaints and disengagement, and that there's a lot that can be done within the education provision, but fundamentally it's really boils down to comms. You've got to build that relationship with that stakeholder, and whether that's you're getting them physically into a room, or whether you're actively communicating them out through your school app or on social or email or leaflets, or all of this is marketing and comms. And it's great, because I totally agree with you, Susie, that I think education and education professionals are starting to understand it's more than just pretty pictures and colors and fonts, and this is really, really strategic, and fundamentally is a force multiplier for the organization in either driving engagement, reducing issues, managing situations, being proactive to mitigate crises. All of this stuff is all down to marketing and comms. I agree. It's lovely to see the recognition it deserves, and hopefully it can, like I mentioned, kind of be a force multiplier for good for education and actually improving outcomes for kids as well. So I think that's a key thing.
Yeah, Great stuff. Well, I think we'll leave it there today, because it sounds like you've got a busy week ahead, Susie. So we don't want to eat too much of your time. But I just want to say a massive thank you again. It's been a very good learning insight, having the conversation with you. I'm sure our watchers and viewers after today as well will find this insightful. But if there's anyone who is watching that can help Susie as well with some of the assets she's put out, then please reach out. Thank you, Ryan. Any final words from yourself?
No, just really appreciate it, and totally impressed that you're managing to do this all with and make time for us. So thank you, Susie, once again.
Yeah, and your turn time.
Yeah. And part time as well, didn't I mention?
You didn't mention that. It's getting worse. All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks a lot.